It's been little more than a day now since the state attorney general released the grand jury's report on sexually abusive priests in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. What it determined is that there were more than 300 so-called predator priests, the victims numbering more than 1,000, and that's what they know of. And also, so many questions yet to be answered. Joining us tonight is Erie Catholic Bishop Lawrence Persico to address some of our questions tonight. Bishop Persico, we appreciate your time here.
Sure.
I want to begin with your reaction. You have been quoted as saying that you were angry when you read the report, when you read what was done and what wasn't done. Explain that, please.
Well, I think what I found upsetting about it was things that we do today that would be just the natural course of how to deal with allegations of sexual abuse. It was missed. You know, the way some victims were treated, or a lack of reporting to civil authority, to law enforcement, and I found it to be just very disturbing.
Attorney General Shapiro used scathing language in talking about your predecessor, Bishop Emeritus Donald Troutman, at one point in the news conference yesterday, accusing the bishop of purposely allowing the statute of limitations to run out on cases. Your reaction to that?
Well, I would find that surprising. I don't think Bishop Troutman would do something like that on purpose. That it was probably more dealing with trying to get the victim and also the perpetrator, taking care of that. His style was not to publicize names. So,
where do you think the AG would get that conclusion then?
Probably from reading the report and interpreting what he read.
All right.
So that would probably be the only way. I mean, certainly unless he has a confession from Bishop Troutman that he did that on purpose, that would be speculation.
You don't know of any such confession?
No.
All right. Let me ask you something else you said about Bishop Troutman and the diocese, that that the diocese under Troutman's leadership misled the public and misled law enforcement when it came to investigations. If that's true, and if it prolonged priests being in the ministry, does that mean that there were more victims because of the delay?
Well, I think, first of all, with more victims, once we posted names, and now with the Attorney General's report, if there are more victims, then they'll be coming forward. We received some today, calls, that are new to names that we don't have.
From potential victims?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And adding more priest names?
No.
Okay.
It's names of priests that are on the list.
Okay.
So, but it's still new victims with those priests.
Let me ask you this about the consequences for Bishop Troutman. On the list is Bishop Alfred Watson. For his actions or inactions regarding priests while he was leading the diocese. If anything the AG said is true, should Bishop Troutman be on the list?
Well, I don't think that would be, at this time, something that we would look at, because I can honestly say that in knowing him and also in the way he operated, I think we have to contextualize this. When Bishop Troutman came here back in 1990, there weren't records. Bishop Troutman created records. Bishop Troutman was the one who put people out of ministry. None of that was done before him. So, and with Bishop Watson, that's a different situation. Bishop Watson was informed of child abuse, and he told the priest who reported it basically to go home and mind his own business. And he transferred the priest afterwards, and he continued to abuse.
Let me talk about what the AG had to say about you. Now, obviously, very complimentary at times, but it suggested in the report that the full cooperation of your office, of yourself, came only after the search warrants had been executed. Is that true? If it's true, why the delay in complete transparency?
Well, I don't think it was a delay in transparency. We were following the advice of legal counsel. And I think the legal counsel was being a little more contentious. And I didn't understand the full extent of it. But once I became aware of the full extent of it, we changed counsel.
Do you support eliminating the statute of limitations for sex abuse crimes?
Well, certainly criminal. Civil, I think, we have to take that into perspective. I've always said, if the legislature does it, I can't determine what they're going to do. However, I think this has to be across the board, not just the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at the list that we put out, there's not only clergy, but we have lay people, mm-hmm. which I thought for sure would be in the Attorney General's report, but it's not, which says that this is not just a Catholic Church issue, but it's a societal issue. So I would say that this would involve both all public and private institutions should be under the same legislation.
Now, you drew the line between criminal and civil. Let me ask you this. Should the victims of predator priests and the cover-up by a diocese be allowed to sue the church?
Well, I can't stop them from suing. So, I mean, that would be their choice.
All right, let me ask you this, Bishop Persico. Of the priests, the 41 priests that have been named from the Erie Catholic Diocese, how many are still in ministry?
The ones that are named?
Yes.
None of them.
None of them are still in ministry. Okay.
Right.
So as we go forward, as a church, as you look into the future, what do you say to people who have had their faith shaken, who have said, all right, this is it, all their promises now are just so many words?
And I can understand that, Sean, because these people have been betrayed, and the clergy, bishops and priests, are held to a higher standard. And for many Catholics, that's what they've been taught. And then to have that kind of betrayal is very difficult. There's going to be anger. There's going to be people who are just going to walk away from it. And how can you argue with that? I mean, what else are they going to do? They feel lost. And my message to them is, don't give up faith in God. God is there to take care of us. These are human beings who have sinned, like we all sin. And yes, they are held to a higher standard, and they have to pay for that.
Bishop Persico, I want to thank you so much for your time here. Sure. We're going to continue this conversation on YourErie.com, and we'll be right back. For those of you watching now on YourErie.com, welcome back. We're talking to Erie Catholic Bishop Lawrence Persico. Bishop Persico, once again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for answering our questions. So much of your response, not only in the day since the report came out, but before that, has been about the victims, has been about saying that this is a time to give the victims a voice. I guess my question is, why should people think that victims will truly get a voice?
Well, I think that I can answer that by an example. A number of victims have called me when they saw the name of their perpetrator on the list to thank me. And they said, we finally feel validated, because many of them feel like they're in darkness, that no one's going to believe them, they're isolated. I had a person who'd been waiting 59 years to be validated. And this is an opportunity for their story to be told and what they experienced. It's important for them.
You know, what's I guess my question would be, has it made it more difficult for you as the leader of a diocese to kind of look people in the eyes and say, we've got this one, and to look young men in the eyes and say, you should become a priest?
Well, first of all, we can talk a lot and promise transparency, new way of doing things, all of that. It's not going to mean anything. It's going to be the actions that make the difference. And I think that if we're going to talk about transparency, we have to be transparent. And people have to be able to see that. We have work to do in building up the trust in people. They don't trust us because we've said, you know, this went on in 2002. Did we learn our lesson? No. Yesterday was evident. So I think it's by our actions is going to say to people that, you know, we are going to be transparent, we are trying to make a difference. And young people, we've been having these dinners recruiting young people. This year we have 7 new men coming into the seminary for the Diocese of Erie. So I think that if people see that you're really trying to do what is right, they respect that.
In the days since the report came out, you've become somewhat of the poster boy for this, not only locally but nationally. How much pressure is Lawrence Persico feeling to get this right?
Well, I think we have a good plan. I didn't realize that, you know, trying to do something right in Erie with our policies and procedures was going to get that much attention. My main concern was was the Diocese of Erie, and so the pressure that I feel is constantly being interviewed with you know, different newscasters. And no, you're fine, you're local, but anyway, I think if we put a good system in place, then it'll go right. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't say we're going to stop every abuse, but we will do our best. That's all I can promise.
All right. Once again, we appreciate it. We appreciate your time, and I'm sure this is a conversation that we will continue as things go on. Bishop Persico, thanks again.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us on YourErie.com.